Good morning, everybody. Hello. Welcome to Successful Work Transitions webinar and Q&A. I'm Anne Harrad. We're going to give it a couple of minutes because what we tend to find is people click on the link and then they need to take a minute just to register. So I usually give people just a couple of minutes, and I've just had a stream of messages on LinkedIn asking for the registration link. So we'll just give people a couple of minutes, but welcome. Thank you for those who are super punctual. Love that. While we're waiting for people to come in, I'd be really interested, if you're willing to share, please, what kind of a work transition is on your mind right now? We go through them on average every 2 years, so it's possible it could be anything, really, big or small. If you're willing to share, I'd love to hear in the chat. You can send me a private message in the chat as well if you'd rather not share openly, but I'd love to hear what's on your mind right now when it comes to work transitions. And I'll make sure that I try and dial that up a little bit throughout the webinar. And of course, we've got the Q&A at the end where you can ask me anything, put me on the spot. And I'm aiming today to give you as much value as possible as I can in this format. So we've got a few more people trickling in now. I give people a couple of minutes at the beginning just to work their way in and register. But in the meantime, please get thinking about the work transition that's most on your mind right now. And I would love to hear in the chat what is on your mind. You can use the private messaging function if you'd feel more comfortable. Good morning, Dom. Good morning, Fiona. Hello, welcome. Please do share in the chat what's on your mind. Is there a particular question, a particular circumstance or situation? Somebody sharing here, I am in between roles, getting involved with volunteering in my spare time. That's fantastic. That's a great way to continue building our skill set when we're looking for our next opportunity. It's a great time as well to take some space and really think about what it is we want next from that next stage of our career. Good morning. Another person saying changing company soon. That's another big transition, isn't it? Going from one culture to another. It's mad, isn't it, that some of the biggest things we do in our lives, that like buying a house or changing companies, we see a house, twice for 10, 15 minutes if we're lucky before we invest probably the most money we will ever in our lives. And it's the same with companies, isn't it? You get a few interviews, you might have some kind of assessment, which might be a little bit longer. But we're making a big commitment based on, very little time. So it's a really big leap of faith and a big commitment to be changing companies. So thank you for sharing that. Someone else in between roles, just back from traveling. Oh, I hope you had a fantastic time traveling. That's what I did when I left my corporate career. I went on sabbatical for 6 months, spent all my money, no regrets. Good morning. Someone else sharing the transition that's on their mind right now. After a wonderful, unique couple of years delivering a major program event in a contract, that contract comes to the end of March. Pivoted to do this role, so open to a new challenge. Love that attitude. And I think that's also another great example of a leap of faith, isn't it? Going and doing something different to challenge ourselves and see if we like it. So I'm sure you got a huge amount of learnings from that. And today we're going to be really encouraging you to challenge your thinking, think a bit differently about work transitions and what you can do about it. I fundamentally believe we have more agency, options and choice than we always think that we do. So we'll be touching on that today. Somebody else sharing a transition that's on their mind at the moment, about to start a consultation process. So assume leading to redundancy for the first time. I'm sorry to hear that's a really difficult, challenging work transition. And it's not unusual at the moment that many people are facing that kind of thing for the first time. On average, when we look at people's careers, you are likely to go through something like that once or twice in your career. And the first time is particularly really challenging. So we can definitely touch on that at the end. I'll come back to all of these in Q&A, so please do think of questions you want to ask. Somebody's sharing about their transition who is between roles. The tough thing is what to pick next. Love to hear some tips on how to adapt to a less structured way of working. I don't address that directly, but we'll come back to that at the end. So please drop things in the chat as we go along that's on your mind. Could be specific to your situation, could be something in general, please drop it in the chat. I'd love to hear what work transitions on your mind, what questions are on your mind throughout, and we will come back to these at the end. But please keep sharing. Thank you very much, everybody, for being really open about where you're at right now. So this is Successful Work Transitions webinar and Q&A at the end, and I am Angharad Ross. But before we get stuck in, I'd just like to touch on, well, what is a work transition? It's a kind of fluffy, businessy word, transition, isn't it? It's not something we tend to use in everyday language, but it's the best word I could think of to describe this group of change that we go through at work. On average, you are likely to go through a work transition every 2 years. And it could be something big, like going through a consultation or changing companies, or it could be something smaller, like a lateral move. But a work transition could be anything that is a process or period of changing from one state or condition to another. There's the dictionary definition for you, but that could be making a big decision in your career. A new contract, as somebody shared here, career change, retirement, moving country, new company, redundancy, restructure, change in responsibility, new role, management change, or a change in manager, change in working hours, going part-time, moving to compressed hours. Lots and lots of different changes that can happen in our careers and in our work. So today is designed to sort of be applicable to many of those, but I'd love to pick up on some of your comments and questions in the chat at the end, where you'll have an opportunity to ask more questions as well. But that's what we mean by we talk about work transitions. So the idea today is to think differently, know you're not alone in going through change in your work, and ideas for what you can do. As I said, I truly believe we've got more agency than we realise. So we're going to talk about why work transitions are so important, the key elements for successful transitions. We're going to touch on some anonymized client stories. They are real, but obviously anonymized. And I'm going to aim to add as much value as I can in this kind of format, especially with the Q&A at the end. But I'll also be talking about what I specifically do to support people going through these sorts of times. So let's get stuck in. So I work with lots of people going through work transitions. Now, that could be a work transition that they've made for themselves, or it could be something that's happened to them. It could be something that starts off feeling really positive, or it could be something that starts off feeling really challenging. But whatever the change, people always underestimate the difficulties of it. You're here today because you appreciate already the change is hard, even positive change. We often feel like we're expected to manage everything alone. Going through change can actually feel really lonely. But actually, weirdly, we also, when we're going through change, there's so much coming at us that we end up feeling rushed, overwhelmed by the lack of time to reflect, plan, and adjust. Change can also give us loads of confidence wobbles. Sometimes it gives us an opportunity to doubt ourselves. And we naturally go to get advice from friends and colleagues, which is so important. But often that means we feel frustrated by the lack of new perspectives or actionable ideas. And we know that often those comments and thoughts are coming from a place of love and their own experience, not necessarily something that is particularly helpful right now. So for those of you that don't know me, hello, I'm Angharad Ross, and I have first-hand experience in global corporates like Johnson & Johnson and Reckitt, over 16 years of leadership experience, mainly in commercial strategy, account management. And these days I'm also, as well as an executive coach, I'm CEO of a startup that is involved in assessing global supply chains for diversity, equity and inclusion. So I have lots of different kinds of varying experience. But what I noticed in those 16 years, particularly in global corporates, was I worked out I had over 15 work transitions. That's actually that's just under one a year. That could be anything from a smaller work transition right up to going through promotion. One that stands out is the time I got promoted, moved towns, left a long-term relationship all in one weekend. I don't recommend that if you can control that, by the way. I learned the hard way. But what I reflected on was so many of those work transitions were harder than they should have been. And that is why I now do what I do. I'm a qualified and accredited coach, and I'm not necessarily a stereotypical coach. I don't have an HR background. My personality preference is, if anyone's into that kind of thing, which I totally am, Myers-Briggs, I am an ENTJ. For those into insights colour profiling, I am very blue, red, green, yellow, which in DISC I think is DC. So there you go. That's a little bit of a feel for me, and that means I bring quite a different style to my work. I'm quite challenging, I'm quite direct, and I like to get stuff done. I like to get people moving forwards. So why is it really important to focus on successful work transitions? Well, they are an amazing opportunity for growth. Even if you think right now this is a really challenging situation, change is an opportunity for growth. It's opportunity for personal growth as well as professional, and it can reset our careers. It can affect long-term progress and success, both one way or the other, depending on how we handle it. But you actually get a super narrow window when it comes to change, because there's a very short period in which we can control things like our mindset. So acting quickly gives us a much better shot at future success and staying ahead of our peers. This is a picture of me and my husband, Cullum. It must have been during lockdown because I had a very dodgy fringe, which my husband cut for me, bless him. But what I like about this analogy is whenever you're in a kayak or a canoe, one person's responsible for steering, the other one's responsible for the power. The challenging thing about our careers is we have to do both of those at the same time. We need that power, that energy, that resilience, but we also need a direction, and we need to know where we're going. Work transitions are really important for stress and emotional well-being. When you look at the neuroscience behind change, it's not really a surprise that none of us really enjoy it, or very few people enjoy change. I mean, I do kind of like change, but it doesn't mean I don't find that really tough. And that's because our little human brains, rather big human brains, but primitively, we go into a kind of fight or flight stress response, because the amygdala part of our brain likes predictability. It's the one that's responsible for keeping us safe, that part of the brain keeping us safe. So when we cannot predict things that are happening, like we hear some rustle in the bushes and we don't know what that is, we immediately have to assume for our safety that's a lion. And that's essentially what we're going through when we're going through change and we don't know what's happening next, that unpredictability. So these feelings of anxiety and frustration can sometimes get us into a bit of a vicious circle, and it affects our personal well-being and our professional performance. So we need to act quickly to lift those negative emotions, to make the transition smoother, more enjoyable, and more productive for ourselves. And we know if we delay that action, it can prolong the stress, decrease our satisfaction. And a lot of my clients refer to it as major loss of mojo. We don't want that. I forgot to talk about my picture. That is my golden retriever, Alba, who is my absolute world. And I think when it comes to change, we should all be a bit more dog. She sleeps about 20 hours a day. The final reason I think work transitions are really important is to maintain our confidence. As careers progress, that expectation of confidence and control increases. Those expectations are really, really high. I remember when I did quite a big jump up once, early days in that role, I was sharing with my manager that I felt kind of overwhelmed, and it was a lot, and there was a lot of adjustment. I was sharing, really just trying to get it off my chest in what I thought was a safe space. And they just said, look, if you can't hack it, there's like 50 people behind you that wants this job. So I thought, wow, we are not going to be talking about emotions again, are we? So that was actually the first time I went and got myself a coach, because I realized I could not expect that person to meet all of my needs. But that's a whole other topic. Work transitions and change can make us feel like an imposter and hit our confidence. And that sometimes can be really, really crippling. It's so important to deal with it, to stop you holding yourself back. There's all sorts of stories we tell ourselves that stop us doing what we want to do. And delaying that action can affect our credibility, feel frustrated, and being overlooked for opportunities like promotions or new roles. This is a picture of when I trained to be a gym instructor. I am a qualified weightlifting instructor for women. When I turned up on that day, I do it for fun, right? When I turned up on that day, there were all these thin, strong people. I was like, oh my goodness, I do not belong here. But you know what? I did the same qualification they did. I passed just as well as they did, and I absolutely loved it. And if I had let that get to me, that would have ruined my whole practical part of my qualification. And I probably wouldn't have something that is now really important and valuable in my life. When I was a kid, I would not have believed you if you said I was going to train to be a gym instructor. I was quite overweight and lazy. So work transitions are really important. Doing all of this successfully is why you're here today. So already massive kudos points for you for being proactive and coming and listening to something to get some new ideas. Whatever change you're going through right now, science shows us that you go through a curve. This is actually quite old now, the Kubler-Ross change curve, and it was originally developed as part of research into grief. And grief is one of the greatest changes a human can go through. But this curve is very applicable to all sorts of change that we go through, no matter how pleasant or not it feels in the beginning. You may have seen this before. There are certain stages. The formal names are things like shock, but it could be surprise, denial, frustration, depression, where people can get stuck for a long time. But then experimentation, decision, and integration, which is when it starts to actually be a part of our life. Every change follows this curve. It could be shorter, it could be longer, it could be higher and deeper, but we all follow this. And how successfully and quickly you get to integration is down to you. No one else can do that for you. So these are the 4 essential conditions for successful work transitions. The top 3 are kind of sequential: clarity, reflection, preparation. But underneath it all has to be support. Don't go it alone. Let's start with clarity then. So there are 3 elements within proactivity that are essential for successful work transitions, and that is mindset, which I've touched on already, resilience, and proactivity. Mindset. Many people lack the confidence and self-belief to have truly successful work transitions, and that's totally natural and normal. You get imposter feelings creeping in, what we call limiting beliefs in the coaching world, but it's essentially stories we tell ourselves that, if we really scratch under the surface, aren't really true or helpful. And it's normal and natural when our brains are going through this change and the amygdala is wanting this predictability, that we're naturally more influenced by others, which can be a good and also not so good thing. So having the right mindset helps us spot the opportunities earlier, handle challenges much better, be proactive, stay confident, reduce that insecurity, self-doubt, and increases our motivation. But without it, we can get really stuck. This is absolutely foundational, fundamental part of resilience through change. So for the right work transition mindset, firstly, you need to understand your current mindset and emotional responses. That might mean facing into some tough stuff. You have to unpack some barriers that are stopping you from having the mindset you need to move forwards. You need to develop helpful thoughts for a growth mindset. So those that aren't familiar with, I think her name is Carol Dweck, who came up with the growth mindset concept. Growth mindset is really about believing you can grow and you will develop, not a fixed mindset, which is I can't, I never have, those sorts of words. You've got to focus on positivity, and I don't mean toxic positivity to the point where we just pretend that nothing tough is happening. I mean focusing on the stuff that makes us feel good, the things that we're good at. And then we explore ways to take control of the situation and move forwards where we can. Resilience. Change is tough. Physiologically, it genuinely uses a lot of energy. Because our amygdala is trying to find this predictability in all this change, and we're learning lots, our brain genuinely uses more glucose. It's why we're knackered when we start a new role or we move house or something. It genuinely uses a lot of energy. So we have to look after ourselves to stay resilient. There's a lot of fear from that uncertainty, totally normal human reaction, and it can be demotivating and frustrating. I get that. And I see loads of people's resilience run down by the toxic situations. Toxic managers comes up quite a lot in my work. That this constant change and then having to make big decisions, which can sometimes feel really overwhelming. But keeping your resilience high strengthens your ability to handle these emotional challenges, helps you maintain that appropriately positive outlook, and reduces your stress. And when I have clients coming to me whose resilience are really low, I work with them on identifying and reframing those unhelpful things they tell themselves. What are they telling themselves? What's true? What's helpful? What's not true? And what's unhelpful? I help pinpoint what is helping and hindering their resilience. What are the barriers in the way? And exploring coping strategies that work for them and relight their fire, because everybody's different. I have to go for a run in order to feel more resilient. That is not everyone's bag, and I totally get that. So it's got to be tailored to the individual. And finally, under the clarity section of successful transition work factors is proactivity. And I very much saw this in my corporate career, and especially as a hiring manager. Productivity is a major differentiator between successful and unsuccessful work transitions. It's very obvious when someone is sitting back and expecting something to be shown to them, given to them, happen to them, and those that take charge of their own situation. Because it gives you more control, it gives you more options. It helps clarify what you want and you need, not what someone else is telling you. And it gives you a competitive advantage over your peers because it is noticeable. You're already taking a step by being here today. But I also get that having the strength to be proactive relies on that mindset and resilience stuff having already been done. Then from there, you can define and work on your own values and goals. That was a big piece of work I did when I left my corporate career. I had to go back to basics on this stuff. I actually realized, even though I said I had values, I couldn't name them, didn't know what my goals were. Then you have to figure out how to get the information and connections you need. Be deliberate. Your energy is definitely challenged when you're going through change. Don't waste it where you don't need to. Understand the controllables. What is in your control and what is not? Control what you can control and let go of the stuff you can't. It's so easy for me to say this, so much more difficult to do in practice. I completely understand that. So I'd like to talk to you about Sarah and what she went through. So when Sarah came to me, she was a senior leader in the data industry, and she just landed a really great new job after leaving quite a toxic work environment. And if we're really honest, it was a toxic manager. There was more stuff going on, but the manager was really tough. And the stress and the chipping away at her that happened in that previous role left her doubting her skills and ability. She really wanted to feel more excited about this new job, but all she kept thinking was worrying that it was going to be the same again, or she needed to be different, which, in a little way she did. But she wanted to feel more positive and go into this role and be her best self, and she didn't feel she had that anymore. Alongside this new company, there were things like more days in the office, a longer commute. She has a family and a routine, and that was also going to have to change. So there was a lot going on for her. And it's interesting, isn't it, when we go through change, it's rarely one thing. It has an impact on our broader lives and selves. So before she came to me, she was preparing for her new role on her own. She was reading books and articles, but it just wasn't enough to get her feeling positive enough about it again. So I helped her feel more confident by identifying the roots of this self-doubt. What was she telling herself that was making her feel that way? Reminding her of what she's capable of. There's loads of research that shows focusing on our strengths has an incredible impact on our mindset and our ability to move forwards. So I created a quiet, dedicated space around her busy life. She was still finishing up her old job, where we explored and we reflected together. She slowly began to trust her abilities again, tell herself a few more truthful stories, and she came up with effective, practical ways to balance this new routine and new home life and new job. She slipped into her new role really, really well. It doesn't mean it wasn't tough. Doesn't mean she had to put some major work in and have some wobbly moments, but she got some fantastic quick wins, which are really important in any new change situation. And she quickly became a trusted leader in her new company. It was incredible to see. She was like a different person. And I can imagine some of you may have been through moments like that yourself. I know I certainly have. So that was Sarah's story, which I think links quite nicely in with the clarity condition for successful work transitions. So now I'm going to move on to reflection. So there are two essential conditions for successful work transitions when it comes to reflection. The first is time to think, and the second is digging deep. Now, if I had £1 for every time a client said to me, I just haven't got the time to think, I wouldn't need to work. Failing to create time, though, can lead to rushed, inauthentic decisions, increased stress, and it could mean taking actions not aligned with your goals or values. And that's why I like to think of sessions with me as like thinking appointments. So I have a personal trainer, even though I'm a qualified gym instructor. I could push myself in the gym, but I don't. I need the accountability. I need an appointment to turn up to and make it happen. And it's the same with thinking. Needs time in the diary to hold people accountable, just an hour to do some serious thinking, conveniently booked in advance, and creating the right environment for that particular individual so they can do their best work. And safe spaces for emotions where there's no judgment. I get a lot of tears, and that is totally normal and totally fine. And I've been there myself. But the beauty of having thinking appointments with someone like me is that I'm 100% focused on the individual and always in their corner, no matter what. The second condition for reflection is digging deep. We have to put the work in on ourselves. Recognizing the roots of our thoughts and feelings is really important for overcoming these obstacles, addressing underlying issues, developing strategies to deal with them, and to move forwards in a way that makes sense for us as individuals. I had somebody come to me when they were between roles because they'd had some consistent feedback throughout their career on a couple of development areas, and they wanted to take that time to deal with them. So it was going to be less of an issue when they went into their next job. They wanted to take that time and space to really understand, where was this coming from? Why is it being consistent throughout my career? Yeah, it's not a deal breaker, but I want to be better. I thought that was incredibly proactive. Without going deep into ourselves and finding these nuggets, people often get stuck in these repetitive thinking patterns. And aren't they exhausting when your head goes around the same thing all the time? They feel frustrated, unable to make meaningful progress forwards, and it does genuinely hinder development. We have to start from within ourselves, don't we? So together with my clients, we pick away and uncover these underlying beliefs, experiences, triggers, to help people get new insights into themselves from which they can build strategies to grow. And that means I have to listen seriously, deeply. I always thought I was a good listener, and I went on every coaching course I was offered in my corporate career. But when I trained to be a professional coach, like, the listening they teach you is like next level. It's really helped my marriage too, actually. It's great. I ask really challenging questions, because if we don't face into this stuff and it's not faced directly, we never move past them. So I wanted to share now David's story. So David, here, let me get my notes on David so make sure I represent him faithfully. So David had just started a new role at a much bigger global company. He was initially excited, confident, but he soon found himself coming up against some unexpected challenges. He was really struggling to connect with his manager. It's a really common one I hear in this situation. He felt overwhelmed by the high expectations and the sheer volume of opportunities to shape their role. You ever been in a situation where you've had the opportunity to shape something? And that kind of means people don't really know what the expectations are, but they kind of want you to do the thing, but they can't really tell you what the thing is. And it can be quite really stressful. It's also an amazing opportunity, but it means you have to really grab the bull by the horns. Emotionally, he felt really isolated and frustrated. And it just led to this gnawing away at his self-belief, who's getting this self-doubt. He tried to handle it all on his own, believing that just working harder and longer hours would help him overcome his problems. But all that did was make him tired. It triggered some old perfectionism issues, and it wasn't actually helping him. So he was in a bit of a state, bless him, when he came to me. But I helped him identify what was and wasn't working, because there was actually some really good stuff that he was doing and was happening. That's not what he was focused on. We helped him view his manager differently and find ways to find mutual ground and mutual understanding. They were never going to be besties. That is totally fine. We're not at work to be liked. We're at work to be respected, right? We helped him understand where this old perfectionism urge was coming from and why it had come out, and then helped him try some new approaches that he developed himself. This is not about me giving people the answers, right? It's what was going to be right for him to experiment. Think of the change curve, experiment his way out of this. I provided a safe space for David to share his feelings, and a lot of that needed to just come out, explore his challenges and think differently about this person and the situation. He learned to better understand and communicate with his manager, control these urges of perfectionism, and manage his imposter feelings better. And that ultimately meant he improved the relationship with his manager, he set some boundaries, felt more secure, connected, supported, capable, and made more time for activities outside of work, which then fed nicely back into the resilience, etc. So he really just needed an outlet. But I think that's a nice example of when reflection and doing that deep work can help move forwards really positively. So moving on to preparation now. Most people don't prepare and plan thoroughly. If anybody's worked with me, they will know that I love a plan, but I also appreciate not everybody does. However, if we don't have some kind of direction or goal, we're going to be floundering. Feeling prepared and having some kind of plan and direction gives you control and that confidence that others will notice and feel. It's kind of that swan, isn't it? Working hard underneath and gliding on the surface. But if you don't have it, you genuinely lose time, you waste energy, you could lose your credibility and make poorer decisions. So it's so important to do some kind of preparation when you're going through change. So I help my clients figure out what they need to prepare for. Doesn't have to be everything. If you're starting a new role, there's the classic first 90 days, but we don't have to do all of that. It's dependent on ourselves and our situation. How best to go about it for them, and what are the natural next steps for getting it done, that accountability to move forward. Things don't always go to plan, totally okay. But isn't it better to move forwards with some kind of direction that is designed for you than let things happen to you and be dragged along by the current? Even if you have to pivot later, totally okay. So I want to talk to you about Claire. So Claire was going through a restructure when she came to me. Let me just see. Sorry, I can see. So she was a senior manager in a marketing firm, and she discovered that a restructure meant her role had changed. She said they'd sucked the fun out of it. It was way less enjoyable and lacking in the development opportunities that she needed to progress. She was one step away from taking a step up. She dreaded planning. And then it just made her feel stuck, uncertain, frustrated, because she wasn't making the time to plan for her next career move. Do I stay? Do I go? What do I do here? She needed to redefine her development plan in the new context that she found herself. And she's spoken with her mentor, but they just told her what she already knew, which was you need to work out what you want and make a plan to get it. No shizzle, Sherlock. But she was still struggling to know how to do that. And she kept getting stuck in this same loop of thinking, which was making her super anxious. So she wanted to make a well-informed career decision and a future plan. So we went back to values, goals, options, what was good about the restructure, what wasn't. So she clarified her true wants and needs all through conversation. We didn't need to be like doing any kind of scary official planning or templates or anything, just conversations. And that led to her making some authentic decision making. She actually did decide to stay. But she challenged some hidden assumptions about this new situation, this new role, what she needed. And she then boosted her own confidence in her own decision. So we broke the planning down into manageable steps. We made it super conversational. We got colored pens out, not my natural vibe, but that's what she needed. Examined her dislike for planning as well, which uncovered some interesting stuff for her. Found ways to overcome that and then experimented with her approach until she found the right thing. She made a really confident career decision to stay. She was really happy about that choice. But what was really interesting is she created a development plan to communicate her needs back to the company. She rediscovered her career mojo. She felt calmer, clearer, more confident in these decisions and what she needed. And she went with this development plan and a list of all the things that she needed. And she essentially went and negotiated her own development opportunities in this new world she found herself. As far as I'm aware, I think she's still there, which is great. And she got everything on her list, which she was, well, both of us were very pleasantly surprised by. But it just shows if you don't ask, you don't get. But you can't ask if you're not clear. So we've talked about clarity, reflection, preparation. You'll kind of notice how they're kind of sequential, they build on each other. But now I want to talk about support, which has to underpin all of these. A lot of people lack the support necessary to handle change effectively. So many of my clients battle it alone for quite a long time before they seek help. But having the right support removes isolation, it provides reassurance, it helps maintain that emotional balance. So important to get the right kind of support. And there are two types of support I talk about. The first one is internal support, and the second is external support. So what do I mean by these? Well, internal support is stuff like people within your organization, mentors, bosses you really trust, or it could be a recruiter or a friend, it could be family. And often, particularly friends and family, come with this unconditional support, which is so useful because they just want you to be happy. And so do you, right? That's what we're all looking for here. But they do look at it pretty much just from that personal happiness perspective. It's a useful and powerful perspective we mustn't let go of, but it's not enough alone. Co-workers, managers, mentors understand your workplace really well. Super useful for getting feedback and for hearing their experiences, giving you ideas. Recruiters, I learned the hard way when I was on sabbatical and not really knowing what I wanted to do with myself. I went through a process, wasn't sure whether I wanted it or not. The recruiter pushed me quite hard. And then when I made the decision I was going to go it alone, start my own business, they very helpfully said to me, now is a terrible time to be starting a business with the state of the economy and everything. This is what, 2022. It got worse since then, but I'm still here, survived. Not helpful. And that's because he was biased. He wanted me to continue through the process, wanted me to get the job, stick it out for 3 months and he get his moolah, right? So these people come with their own biases. Now, it's helpful to hear these things, but you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, right? It's rarely enough to have this kind of support. And that's why I also talk about external support coaching. Now, obviously, I am biased in, of course, recommended coaching. But the beauty of a properly trained accredited coach is we bring objectivity and confidentiality that are game changers for your thinking. That objectivity means there's no politics, there's no bias, there's no hidden agendas. Confidentiality, no one even needs to know that you're talking to me. And that can open up some really great stuff. It helps you challenge your own thinking, find those new perspectives, and keep yourself on track for your goals. So these two things together, an absolute killer combo. So how do you go about getting this support? So internal, my very strong top tip is share how you're feeling with selected friends and family. Now there's that phrase, we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And I think that just demonstrates the influence that those around us can have. So if you know you have a moaning Minnie in your family, we all do, don't speak to them about this. So be mindful who you spend time with and who you listen to put you in the right place to get to where you want to. Consider what, if any, support might be available in your organisation, but obviously be deliberate. Just identify a couple of helpful people. And my strong tip here is to set tangible objectives for each person and interaction and be mindful of biases. So if you're talking to someone a couple of levels above you, bear in mind that their experience was a few years ago and it might not be the same environment, particularly with all the massive change we're seeing in the workplace right now. But set an objective. What is it that you want to ask them? What do you want to get from that interaction that would be helpful for you? And what are you going to do with it? External, obviously, identify a coach who's experienced in change and transitions, like moi. Check they're qualified in coaching accredited, like moi. Book a complimentary discovery call and prepare questions for it. So I offer free calls. I'll give you a link in a minute if you're interested. I love just talking to people and try and offer as much value I can in those calls. But it's essentially to see, if you get along, because relationship is absolutely the number one determinant of success of any kind of interaction with anyone like a therapist or a coach. You've got to be able to open up, otherwise it's pointless. So prepare questions, really think about what you want to get out of meeting somebody like me, and work with someone you think you can open up to and will understand you. Really, really important. So my top tips for successful work transitions: be proactive. You have more agency and control than you think. Be mindful of who you talk to and get as much support as you possibly can. Navigating change and making decisions is not easy. It takes energy, proactivity, and loads of support to get it right. And that's why one-to-one coaching with me is a solution that includes the 4 things that are most missing when people go through work transitions. That confidentiality and objectivity, the direct challenge, the dedicated time, those thinking appointments, and digging deep and facing into stuff so we can actually move forwards properly. And depending on the kind of work you're looking to do, I do weekly and then moving to every other week, confidential 1-hour online coaching sessions, super flexible, designed around your life. These sessions are booked in advance at a time that suits you, and I hold you accountable. It's interesting actually how infrequently people move their sessions, because it means they have a deadline to prepare for some stuff, do some thinking. I have a little info sheet on how to prepare to maximize your sessions. Quite a lot of people maybe haven't had external coaching with a professional coach before. So you want to absolutely make the most of your investment. And I have quite a strong focus on autonomy. I don't take notes. I don't give you homework unless you ask for it. Some people, of course, I have a couple of neurodivergent clients that like me to take notes or want an AI note taker running in the background. That is totally fine. But I suppose the principle I'm saying here is I truly believe people need to take responsibility for their own thinking, their own actions to move forwards. So I have quite a strong sense of autonomy in the way I work. These are just some things that my clients have said. I have a really flexible style. Yes, my preference is blue, red, but I've learned the hard way. You must be very flexible to different kinds of people and the kinds of ways they want to think. So I've got flexible style, a depth of personal experience. I create an incredibly valuable space to reflect, and I can be a huge part of a big transition period for people. I listen deeply, get to the heart of things quickly, challenge people's assumptions, and bring people clarity. I genuinely care about people's professional goals and personal growth. And I have an incredible ability to ask the right questions. I think that comes partly from my sales background, but also my dad was a journalist, fun fact. Questions have been a huge part of my life. I help people boost their confidence, help others succeed, give them invaluable insights, and push you to grow while offering unwavering encouragement. I help people go outside of their comfort zone, but I'm also lovely to work with, apparently, which is nice to hear. So these are just a few snippets from people I've worked with recently. So how does it work, Anne Harrod? Well, you can book a free online context call with me via my website. This has all my latest availability on it, so you can book directly without back and forth. I actually forgot to check the QR code before our call here, so hopefully this works still. Let's just quickly scan that. Yes, it does. So from there, we just have a conversation. What's going on with you? What change are you going through? What are you thinking about in terms of what support you might need in order to move forwards? And then if it's something that you're interested in and we get along and you think this might be something that might be helpful for you, you get a tailored quote from me specific to your situation. And then it's as quick and simple as book your first session and we start the work. It is as simple as that. So it's absolutely complimentary, no pressure, no expectations. Always great to talk to people going through change and hear their challenges, try and help as best I can in 1 hour, but really there to just listen and hear what support you might need and whether I might be the right person to do that for you. So please do feel able to book a call. And because you have joined my webinar and stayed with me to this point, if you do work with me, mention that you came to the webinar and you get a free 1 hour accountability session with me 6 months after completing your coaching program. And that's worth £275. And that's a great opportunity for keeping the momentum going on your actions and doing what you said you would and getting yourself to where you said you were going to put yourself. So that's a really nice way to keep in touch afterwards, keep the momentum going after doing lots of hard work. So I've only got 2 slots left to start working with me. I mean, this month, February coming up. So if you are interested, getting quick. So I've got a couple of people finishing next week, which means I've got these 2 slots available starting in February. So if you are interested, please do book a call. Happy to have a chat. Really interested to hear where you're at. And whatever position you're in, whether we end up speaking or not, I absolutely know you can go and smash that transition. Wherever you are right now, you have it in you to absolutely go and smash it. So thank you for listening. I hope you found that useful. I'm going to move to Q&A now. So I'm going to read through the chat. I can see there's been a lot of liking, a lot of chatting. Thank you. It sounds like you're being supportive to each other, which is awesome. So we're going to come back to, I'm going to scroll right back to the beginning. So make sure that we cover all the questions. Please put more in if you want to. So we have touched on things, hopefully, that will give you a feel for in between roles. mindset and resilience and proactivity is super important when you're between roles. I know as someone who works for myself, when you aren't necessarily in an office environment anymore or surrounded by other people going through the same kind of stuff as you, that can be quite challenging. So I really encourage you to put some structure in your day, make your goals clear, spend that time on your mindset, your resilience, your proactivity, because keeping that really strong will be the game changer for the rest of this time between roles. Think what you can do proactively to make this a great opportunity. How can you use your time here to get to where you want to for that longer term? I've had a few people start working with me recently that want to either choose a more appropriate organization next for them, or they want to deal with some stuff so they can hit the ground running when they do get a role. I also do interview coaching with people, how to help them stay strong, sell themselves in interview, bringing a smidge from my sales career in there. Another person in between roles, back from traveling. It can be quite hard when you come back from traveling, speaking from experience, because you've gone and had this amazing time. You can go and escape all of the shizzle at home, and then you come back and it's all still there. And you have to then start facing into some tough stuff. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do here? Consultation process. So this is a really, really tough one for resilience. Of course it is. But I really encourage you to keep that high, work on your mindset. What do you want out of this situation? How could you take control? What do you maybe need to think about negotiating? What would you maybe need to think about positioning? Sell yourself. If you find yourself in a position of going through redundancy, remembering that it's the role that's being made redundant, not you. You have so much to give and so much to bring. Focus on that. Remember, the research says focus on your strengths, and it's absolutely true. And again, if you do find yourself in that situation, I would also encourage you to negotiate. Tough thing is what to pick next, how to adapt to a less structured way of working. What to pick next, I think, taps really into that clarity and reflection stage, making sure you put in the time and the work to really understand what it is that you want to do next, and not just making some assumptions or going with the same thing before. It's a great opportunity to take the time and space to think, who are you now? You may not be the same person when you last took a crossroads in your career. Who are you now? What do you want? And what's right for you and your situation right now? You might have some short-term things you need to think about, as well as some long-term stuff you need to think about. How to adapt to a less structured way of working. I think that varies massively depending on your preference for structure. Like, I find it quite easy to put structure in because I love it. And some people find it really hard. And that's, I suppose, where accountability, booking things in, so you have to turn up to them to create some structure, can be really valuable. Tips on how to manage the psychological impact of something like going through consultation, how to stay rational, not panic, take the time to find the right next move. It's the first time I've been moving roles when it wasn't on my terms. And I think hopefully you've already got a few ideas from today on that already. How to stay rational. Remember, this is not about you personally. It's just something that's happening, and it's shit, but it's something that's happening. You're not alone. There's a huge amount of it going on right now. Don't panic, because you're awesome. Focus on your strengths. If you do nothing else in this situation, make a list of all the things you're awesome at, and don't forget them. Have them to hand. Focusing on our strengths is one of the absolutely most powerful ways to focus on resilience, strength, proactivity, positivity. Take the time to find the right next move. Yes, but that means don't waste time either. Make sure that you are making the most of the time that you do have, and don't stick your head in the sand. Don't expect something to be handed to you. You've got to be proactive. Second major redundancy in 4 years. That is not an unfamiliar story. I've got that the right way around. Yeah, lots of people saying that at the moment. Like I said, on average, people will go through a redundancy process once or twice in their careers. For some people, that has even been within a year recently. My sister-in-law, I think, has been through it 3 times in the last 2 years. Slightly panicking about not being able to break through the AI HR robot filter. I'm not a recruiter, but I talk to a lot of people going through this, and it comes up every time I do a webinar now, actually. My top tip for that would be, you got to play the game. If your CV is going to be run through AI, you need to almost be thinking, what's that AI being trained to be looking for? I don't think it's that different to back in the day when we didn't have this, when a human was reviewing our CVs. They're looking for keywords. Make sure those words are exactly the same now, because a human will be able to see a bit more context. But it's the same thing. Go through the job description. What are the words they're picking out? Go through the company's website. What words are they using commonly? Tweak your CV accordingly. So I don't think it's hugely different, and there's only so much you can do in that. But I'd say go back to the fundamentals of how do you sell yourself. Number 101 of sales, know your audience. Then show your solution tailored to what they need and want. That's what we're doing as part of an interview process. Burning through the settlement package at speed. Yes, I have also been there when I left corporate and accidentally spent most of my money on traveling. I knew what I was doing, but I was a bit of a shock when I came back. So I wish I had a solve for that, other than keep being strong, keep being proactive, and be choiceful about where you put your energy and your investment. Feels like thousands of people are applying for every job. I've heard it's very competitive out there. Absolutely. I wish I had a solve for you on that as well. Again, coming back to, you are selling yourself. Focus on that. You are selling yourself. Think of it like a product. That's what you are right now, until you get in and you can show them the whole shebang. You've got to show them that you are what they need and want. It's a kind of transaction. I've covered those, I think. Walking the dogs and hiding under a blanket are surely wintering productive readying steps, restoration and recover. 100%, yes. You know, when I talked about resilience and stuff, everybody has that in different ways. Having my coffee in bed with the dog, absolutely important for me to restore myself. And I'm not saying we shouldn't take the time to feel the feels. When something shit happens, or even when something exciting happens, feel that. We are humans. Those feelings need to be felt and they need to be dealt with. And I think it's really important that we don't get stuck there. That's the only thing. So feel the feels. They're important. Emotions are signals for us. And digging around in those emotions and understanding why we're feeling a particular way can actually be very, very helpful. So feel the feels. Sit under a blanket for a bit, eat the chocolate, cuddle the dog, go for a walk, go for a run, do whatever it is that you need. So yes, very important. Thank you. Any advice on using network when job hunting? Yes, use your network. Reach out to people. A lot of people, me included, right? I'm terrible at using my network to get myself business. And I think it's because we think we don't want to bother people. Everybody's reasons are different, I suppose. But people love to help people. If someone reached out to you and said, oh, I'd really love to pick your brains on this right now, you would happily do it, I'm sure. You'd find the time. And people do, if you ask. Reach out, just ask for a chat, ask for a coffee, understand what's going on for them right now. But again, go back to those sales skills. That call needs to be deliberate. You need to think about what questions you're going to ask. How do you make that time valuable for them as well as you, even if that for them it's a warm, fuzzy feeling that they've helped you. Use your network, but make it about them. What's going on for them? What's going on for their business? That's how you find opportunities. Don't make it all about just you, although it is important to share, of course. Keep nurturing those relationships. You are a human and so are they. But yes, reach out for people, book coffees, but not with everybody, because we don't have the time or energy for that. So be deliberate about who is going to be most helpful for where you want to get to or what you want to find out or explore right now. I'm being proactive, but I'm unsure which option to go for. I'm getting a few calls about jobs. Right, so that is absolute classic mindset reflection stuff. Go back to the basics. If you're not clear on things like your values, your goals, your strengths, where you want to go in the next few years, it means it's really hard to make decisions. How can you look at a list of jobs and then say, this one is definitely the right thing for me? I talk about the magpie effect quite a lot. I'm like, oh, shiny job. That looks exciting, whatever. And people apply and then realize it's actually not really what they want to be doing. The organization doesn't meet all their values and it's also 3 hours away. So don't get distracted by the shiny stuff. Go back to the fundamentals of who you are, what you want to do. And that I work with a lot of people on that at the moment. Actually, I've had quite a flurry of inquiries about this because people know they want to make a good decision next and use this time to get back to who they are now. They might not have looked at things like their values and their goals in a long time. I know I hadn't. Who am I right now with all this experience, life experience and career experience? And what do I want now for myself, my family, my life? I think I'm reasonably clear on what I don't want to do. Oh, that's a great start. That's also information, isn't it? And that helps us. We're trying to weed out stuff, aren't we? And really highlight and spend our time and energy on the things that are going to get us forwards to where we want to get to, not necessarily just something shiny. But knowing what you don't want is a great start to helping find out what you do want. So I'd encourage you to think there about what is it that makes you not want those things? Therefore, what needs to be true in what you are looking for? What does that mean to you? What does it look like? Somebody's left a nice top tip here. I would suggest you load the job application, a draft CV and draft covering letter and ask AI to refine. Paid ChatGPT is very worth it. Yeah, I use paid ChatGPT. I absolutely encourage that kind of approach. If you're going to be read by AI, get AI to chat to AI. Now, I know it's kind of crazy. We're going to end up in a world where just AI is talking to AI, but you also kind of have to play the game. When you say load the job application, a draft CV and draft covering letter in, yes, but also give it the company website. Give it your perspective if you've spoken to a recruiter or their perspective. As much information and context as you can put in. That's always the key with any kind of AI, right? Feed it as much as possible to help you as much as possible and really challenge it, because often the first thing it comes back with is not good enough, right? So that's where we have to bring in our experience, our challenge, to shape that as best as possible. So I hope that that's been helpful. I'll stay on for another couple of minutes if anybody's got any further questions, but you know where to find me. The link to my website and booking a call is also on my LinkedIn profile if you missed the QR code. Because you've registered for this, you'll also get a recording of the webinar, the recording of today's session in your inbox, and also just drop you a note to see what you found interesting and useful, because that helps me tailor this and make it as helpful for people as possible. But I hope that that's helped answer some things that are on your mind, given you a few different things to think about, and well done for taking the time out to dedicate to this kind of thing. You're welcome. I'm glad they were pragmatic words. We've got to be pragmatic in these situations, haven't we? As I said, feel the feels, but also we've got to take the bull by the horns and control our situation as best we can. But I hope that's been helpful. I'll stay on a couple more minutes, ask questions if you'd like to. If not, have a fantastic Friday. Go and enjoy your weekend. Let some of this stuff mull, and you absolutely know where I am if you would like to have a chat further. Really helpful. Thank you. Time for a bit more reflection for me. Yes, please. If there's a takeaway, it is take the time to think. It's so important. And that often I see leading to a lot of problems when people rush through things or get stuck in emotions for too long and don't take that time to think a bit more clearly. Another person saying time to think is a big takeaway for them. Fantastic. Happy to help. If you want more time to think, then please do book a call with me and we can chat through your specific situation. I might go and put that back on the stage if anybody is interested in booking a call with me. So lots going on there, lots of change going on. It's often busy towards the end of January, but I think it's busier than it usually is. I think because there is a lot of stuff going on right now. You are not alone. Work transitions are really common. People don't talk about it as much as we maybe should. It's another reason I try and be really visible about this. But you're not alone. It's super tough physiologically from a brain point of view, but also in general, emotionally. Somebody said they've just applied for their dream job, now to try the direct approach and contact people to help support my application. Absolutely. That's a fantastically proactive thing to do. Remember, there is a human or set of humans in every process. What can you do to show those humans that you're also human in the age of AI? Somebody said, I feel like I want to avoid AI, but that may be just me. I can understand that. There's a huge amount of resistance to change, something a bit different. And also it does feel really like not human, doesn't it? But it is part of the process now. And I think we have to be realistic about that, and not stick our head in the sand because other people are not. So if you want to stand out in this market, weirdly, you kind of have to do what everyone else is doing, but you do really still need to focus on your strengths. And the difference, I think, is those that are actually proactively selling themselves against the criteria, and those that think they're just going to go through a process. And that is why, if you do use AI, really challenge it, make sure it includes your strengths, but is using the right language of the customer, in this case, the company you're applying for, right, or the hiring manager. But absolutely, the tip there is try the direct approach. Contact people to help support your application. The best way to get another role is through your network, because often a lot of roles don't even make it to the likes of LinkedIn, do they? So use your network, have a few virtual coffees with people, meet up if you can. You know more people than you think. So really wanted to avoid AI and restrict it, but it can really help with writing your narrative down in sharp ways, but in my voice. Yes, absolutely. But you've got to train it. So input, context, challenge. It can save you huge amounts of time. Yes. But it's definitely sloppy with the first few outputs, even the paid ChatGPT or equivalent. So make sure that you are challenging it to give you what you want it to. Any further questions or reflections here? Right, I think I'm going to wrap up, folks. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your engagement in the chat. It's probably been one of the chattiest chats in some time, so thank you. I run these roughly once a month, so if anybody else is interested in coming and asking their questions, they can come to a live one, or please share the recording with anybody you think might find this useful as well. You will get a link, hopefully pretty instantly. Reach out and chat if you'd like to. All the best. Have a lovely weekend when it comes. Stay proactive, stay positive, and absolutely happy to chat. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.